Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. This is the weekly landscape update video that I do here in Raleigh, North Carolina, Zone 7B. Project that's been going on a little over 2 years, and the shrubs and trees and everything that were planted early on are really starting to fill in this spring. Annual beds are really starting to take off now in the summer heat. Last week's video, I focused on some of the shrubs that were starting to flower. The butterfly bushes are wide open. The clethra is about to bloom. The summer blooming hydrangeas, the paniculatas are starting to open up. So we concentrated on that. This week I'm going to show you some of the summer perennials that are starting to bloom. I also want to prune a spirea in this video just to show you how I go about keeping a kind of a natural form on the spireas that bloomed in the late spring. So let's get started. The view into the front garden is looking pretty good. I took a photo out here with Buddy Lee the other day, the inventor of Encore azaleas. He was in town for a plant symposium, and so was kind of nice to have Buddy walk through the garden. I've walked through his many times down in Louisiana, so that was really nice. One of the things that's starting to open in the landscape this week is agapanthus, and I have several agapanthus. I'll show you a few more in the back garden. This one has the blue on the back and the white in the center. I'm in Zone 7B here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and we're right on the edge of where most of these agapanthus are. If you're in Zone 7, you want to grow agapanthus, make sure it's one that says it's hardy for Zone 7. Mostly that has to do with them dying completely back to the ground more than anything else. If the foliage stays up above the ground during the winter time, they tend to take more damage, and so the few that I have in the garden are pretty reliable, going completely dormant, hiding under the ground, and then coming back pretty reliably. This will be the last week. I might as well point out the Empress of China dogwood one last time. You can see bracts are starting to fall off of it, but this has been, I don't know, you guys watch these weekly tour videos. I have no idea how many weeks this thing's been like this in some form or fashion, but I think this will be the last week, and it's been in the upper 90s like many of you watching right now. I think it's 7 in the morning. It's almost 80 degrees today, but it's almost finished, but it looks great, and I'm super impressed with just how long that thing actually blooms. This zinnia down here below, this double raspberry, what is it called? Double raspberry what?
Double raspberry ripple.
Double raspberry ripple. I don't know why I have such a hard time remembering that. I really like this variety. It's one we did last year as well, and just has so many different colors in it. They open darker, and then more of the white shows up in them as the flower ages. The Caryopteris is still confused about what time of year it is, and is continuing to try to bloom some. Typically they're more late summer. There's some, that purple flower that you're seeing here is called Lisianthus, and I haven't actually pointed these out. This is another example of an annual that, these flowers are beautiful, and I'm about to hurt people's feelings, but it's just one little piece coming up. I'd really like for these to fill out some, and you know, instead of having just a few flowers up on top, have it multiple branches, and so I'm actually going to come down in here and cut this off. Beautiful dark purple flowers. There's several of them along here, and that's how they've all done so far. There's just had one little piece coming up, but beautiful flowers. Pollinators really love these, so I'd like to get them branched out a bit. I put up a bunch of pruning videos earlier, maybe a month or so ago. There were 3 of them, and I pruned a lot of different shrubs that had bloomed earlier in the season. This spirea happened to bloom a little later than other things, and so it's finished flowering, but this one will give us some residual flowers during the summertime, and I want to keep it more compact, but I also want it to have this kind of loose form that it had when it was in full flower. If you were watching the videos 3 weeks ago, this thing is just gorgeous. It's completely covered in pink flowers. The way I go about pruning this is we have this just spiky growth that's up above the main plant. And you can see that. I showed an azalea that was similar to that. You see this one branch right there? That's how this thing spikes up and flowers. I'll follow these down into the plant and cut them off just like that. And it doesn't take long at all. There's no mistake that can be made here. It's not like I'm going to, you know, over concentrate on this, but every place you see one of these spiky pieces, just follow it down in the plant. You might want to wear gloves for this. It's sometimes can be a little frightening putting your hand down into the middle of the plant. These are just little snips that I typically use for propagation. I've shown them many times in my propagation videos, but I'm going to just keep following these pieces down, and when we finish, hopefully it just looks like it did before it flowered earlier this year, and I can continue to keep it this same size. And pruning things encourages some new growth. That new growth should give us some new flowers. So I'm going to quickly go around this real quick. Okay, so there you go. If you want to just keep that natural form, just follow the bloom spikes down into the plant and prune them lower than the rest of the plant, and you'll kind of uncover the fact that there's actually a pretty nice compact plant underneath it. New growth will again come back out and do this same thing again, give us some additional flowers. There's also some perennials like the salvia. I pruned it once in the pruning video already, and again I got new flowers on it and they're slowing down again, but you can see the branch on this spirea has additional flowers that want to come out left and right of that main stalk. So once they get like this and they're this extended and there's only a flower or two on the top like that, you can do the same thing. Just go across the top and just take that part off. Again, they're already branched and ready to flower, but this is the kind of maintenance that I like to do that keeps this fresh looking, and it doesn't really take that long. And well, of course I'm doing it early in the morning because it's so silly hot right now, but taking most of the flowers off, but again, it's covered in buds. Week or two from now, it'll be back in full bloom again. I put up a couple guess the plant videos last week, and the last one on the second video was a Cestrum parquet over at Rob's beautiful garden around the corner from me. And a lot of people missed this one. This has only been in videos a few times, so there's definitely a reason for that. It has this tubular yellow flowers that are just starting to open. What you could see in that other video last week was the yellow flower, but it wasn't open yet. They're tubular shaped. They're definitely shaped for hummingbirds. Hummingbirds absolutely love this plant. This one's got an off odor for sure, and you don't even have to actually touch it to smell it. If you get close to it at all, it definitely has a kind of a strange odor to it. This one had died back to the ground in the wintertime, and I cleaned it up, left 5 main upright pieces on it, but now the suckers are coming back near the base, and so that's something I'm looking for as well in the garden from the pruning that I did previously. It encourages new growth from the bottom, so I'm trying to keep that stuff kind of cleaned up. I'll get in here and clean this up a little better, but that's my point, is looking down here, other pruning that I did from the top of the plant has encouraged more growth down here at the bottom, so I'm looking for that and trying to keep them cleaned up. It is competing with the upper part of the plant, the flowering part, and this plant will absolutely flower until frost. And I don't want, suckers down here at the bottom that won't flower competing with that. So you can see the back garden space, how much it's really filling in this year. I was going back and looking at photos from a year ago yesterday, and a lot of the main pieces were here. I mean, the red bud back there was here. The various trees, the hydrangeas, butterfly bush, a lot of the shrub pieces were here at this time last year, but there was space between them. There were gaps between them, and now you can see, it's just looks like a much more dense planting, but it took 2 years to get here. The Brigadoon St. John's wort, which gets shown all the time on this channel because it tends to be a backdrop when I set the chair out here and do question and answer videos. The reason I'm showing it today is because we have a flower on it. I talked about the other St. John's wort out front last week. These flowers are really draw in the bees, and they really kind of go crazy on them. The flowers don't show up particularly well on this variety. It's really just grown for this foliage, and yeah, there's a lot of flower buds on it. We're going to get some flowers on it, but I mean, I don't know that a yellow flower against yellow foliage is the showiest thing on earth, but super interesting flower. Pollinators absolutely positively love them. One question that was asked last week was for an update on this Japanese maple that I got from Mr. Maple on that visit up there. I did 2 videos with Matt and Tim last year. This variety is called Hot Blonde. Matt's wife is blonde, and he named it Hot Blonde. It has grown. It was here when I got it, so we're looking at, you know, maybe that was 18 inches tall, and now it's, you know, a little over 3 feet probably. So it's put on quite a bit of growth this year. I thought about doing something interesting with it, you know, contorting it in some way, but I think I'm just going to leave this one be. But I have another one that Ram gave me. It was a seedling Japanese maple from her house. I think I'm actually going to create an entryway with it, so you guys will see that coming up. But I'm going to leave this one alone and let it grow naturally. It needs to be staked. You can see it's leaning a bit, and so I'm going to stake it in an upright position like this coming up pretty soon. Again, I talked about up front, some of the summer perennials are really starting to kick in. And here's some more agapanthus in the back garden space. There's an echinacea that was planted in the sun perennial planting video. I think that was Powwow Wildberry is that variety. Just incredible amount of flowers on a very, very small plant. That dahlia is called Melina. I'm in zone 7B. I'm going to leave these in the ground. They'll likely come back. I mean, right here on the edge of zone 8 where they're hardy, staying in the ground. But those of you in colder areas, if you were growing that dahlia, would need to dig them for the winter if you wanted to keep them. There's a Veronica, pink Veronica in the back that's small. It's going to take a season or so for it to get some size on it back there, but it's starting to flower. Veronica's definitely right at the top of the list for the pollinators. The purple variety I have at the other end of the border over there has got bees on it this morning. Then there's various salvias planted in this border that were done in that sun planting video. There's a verbascum you see there that's got one flower spike on it. Again, first year perennials in the ground, we're just trying to get them to survive, really. The flowers are almost a bonus for me in their first year. Further down from that, we've got several more agapanthus that have come back. There's a couple dwarf purple varieties, and then, yeah, there it is. That's really quite striking. And then another one similar to the one in the front garden with the purple on the back. Just to the right of that, there's a salvia. There's Mirage Violet, I think is the name of that Salvia Gregii. That thing just bloom and bloom and bloom, perfect color. And then the annual border has really started to fill in along the turf. All of those were done in videos during the season. This is a Blue Fortunes Agastache, which probably the easiest of all of them to grow. This one was pulled out of a friend's garden, and it's already this tall. It's about to start flowering as well. But you can see this. The flowering perennials that don't mind the heat, you know, when it's 95 degrees like this, are the ones that are kicking in right now. They're all the ones I just showed you are the first year in the ground, other than the agapanthus. They're that's the second year they've come back in these spaces. So next year they'll come back bigger, better, fuller. Probably the third year I'll be popping them out of the ground and dividing them and giving them away, or, you know, just in need of thinning them. I didn't show any of the dahlia section of the garden that's around the vegetable garden last week. There weren't really any new ones that we hadn't seen in these weekly videos. Here, we do have one here though, that's open, and there's a yellow one right down below it that is the first of the first of the yellows. This is section over here are the hybrids. These are the larger growing dinner plate ones, or you know, just hybrids. Maybe they have small flowers, but they're numerous small flowers. One thing I'll do on all of these is, as we see flowers fading, is go ahead and deadhead them, and then more will come. I mean, these will flower right up. These will flower right up until frost. There are several over here in the seedling area that are new since the last time I had shown it. Bees are absolutely all over these. They're staked up in various ways. The stakes will get covered up. You know, if you can put something where they can just lean on it like that, and eventually the foliage will just completely cover that up during the summertime. But deadheading them is important. I will eventually get seed off of my seedling ones over here to collect for next year, but I won't do it early in the season. Right now I'm trying to get them off the spent flowers off to keep them from producing seed, because if they produce seed, they may in fact slow down on their flowering. So just deadheading them, not letting them think they set flowers or set seed, and then late in the season I'll collect lots and lots of seed on these. I showed the Rudbeckia last week, just getting started flowering, but you can see now how much color they have. These are planted in a group of peonies, and here, especially in the south, peonies can kind of start to look a little bit rough during the summertime. They came up, they bloomed. They're new enough that they didn't bloom a lot, but they did bloom. And now I've got these Rudbeckia coming up in the middle of them. These were all done from seed, various varieties that were done from seed. So I think that's kind of interesting thing that you can do if you have some of your early flowering perennial things that come up and then they don't look that great. You can underplant them with other things. I've talked about that with zinnias out in the front garden, that there's lantana planted under them, because I know the zinnias here in the south, by the time we get to August, they're going to be a little bit rough looking. They look great today, but they'll be rough later, and then that lantana will kick in and bloom right up until we get a frost in the fall. So thank you guys for following along with these weekly landscape updates. I'll be back with another one next week, hopefully with additional things in flower. Thanks for watching.